Open your mind to the fact that if you want to eat healthy, if you want to lose fat off your body, and if you really want to feel good and have a lot of energy and live a long and beautiful, healthful life, you're going to have to start occasionally cutting some vegetables or some fruits. That's just going to be part of the deal. So stop resisting it and start considering that just adding that is going to make your life longer. Welcome back to the Energetically Efficient Podcast. I'm Kristin Rowell. Today, I am going to talk about how you can make healthy meals for yourself or your family in less than 20 minutes. In fact, some of these, you guys, are less than 15 minutes. One of the things I hear people complain about all the time is that eating healthy simply takes too long. There's just too much to do. It's too hard to get all these things ready to cook a healthy meal. And I'm here to tell you that that's absolutely not true and that you can very much make simple meals easy. So I want to give you some examples of this. And I'm going to give you lots actually. So feel free to get your pen and paper and write some of these things down or save this for later so that you can watch it later when you're looking for some inspo, either at the grocery store or for what you want to cook for your family at night. But the thing that I want to start with is I've shared on this podcast before, and you'll hear me talk about a lot, which is my little mantra that I say all the time. Every time you eat, I want you to prioritize protein, fill in with fat, and carefully add carbs. And remember, protein, fat, and carbohydrates are our three macronutrients. So the bonus on prioritizing protein, filling in with fat, and carefully adding carbs, the bonus is that you could have fiber first. So I also don't want you to forget about fiber, but fiber tends to naturally take care of itself if you're focused on the really high quality carbohydrates like vegetables, fruits, and beans. Those are high quality carbohydrates. So what I want you to think about as you're going to put together this meal for yourself or for your family in 20 minutes or less is that you're just going to think about getting a food in each of those categories. That is the easiest way to make a meal, and it is the way that I go about my day, putting together my meals for myself, buying things at the grocery store, making things when I entertain, making things to serve other people. I am focusing on what is the protein in the meal, what is the healthy fat in the meal? What is the carefully added carbohydrate in the meal? And as a bonus, does the meal have fiber? Sorry, those are 4 things. Does the meal have fiber? So that's all we have to ask ourselves, and we can come up with an innumerable number of healthy meals that you can make in less than 20 minutes. Okay, are you ready? Okay, so let's get started in terms of examples that I can give you. And I wrote down a number of these because I just wanted to make sure I had these at the ready so that you can hear what I'm talking about as we're making these. Okay. So something super simple like this. So I want you to think about, for your protein, consider focusing on a source of animal protein. And if you're a vegetarian or vegan, this is going to have to be some sort of plant-based protein, but protein is very important regardless of whether you eat animal meat or not. So you really have to think about what your protein source is. So I'm going to use the example of grass-fed ground beef. I love grass-fed ground beef, especially organic. I think it's one of nature's perfect foods. There's so many good nutrients in it. And I'm going to use that as our protein in this example. And then for our healthy fat in this example, I'm going to use olive oil. Okay. You also could use olives, but I'm going to say olive oil, and I'll tell you why in a second. That is because when I get to our carefully added carbohydrate, I'm choosing to use organic broccoli. That is a vegetable. So again, I now have a protein, which is beef. I now have a healthy fat, which is olive oil, and I now have a carbohydrate, which is a vegetable. So I am going to put the olive oil in a skillet. I am going to put in organic broccoli into the skillet. And here is my best life hack that I can give you. I'm then going to add to the olive oil and the broccoli. I'm going to let that cook for a little bit. Then what I'm going to add is cooked grass-fed ground beef. I've already cooked it. I already have it in the fridge. Now, for histamine issues, we don't want to eat cooked meat that's been in the fridge for like 7 days. But if you have cooked meat that's been in the fridge for just a day or two, now you have that to use for the next couple of days for your meals. So this becomes a very, very easy and quick meal because I already had the grass-fed ground beef cooked in the fridge. So all I'm doing is cooking the broccoli with the olive oil, and then I'm adding the grass-fed ground beef. And for flavor, to make it taste really good, I love to add a lot of organic chimichurri seasoning, and some organic umami seasoning. And it is the most delicious meal. And all I had was olive oil, broccoli, and grass-fed ground beef. Now, if you want to make this meal a little fancier and you have a little more time, then I recommend that you get organic garlic or organic onion, and you cook that first with the olive oil before you add the broccoli, so that the broccoli can become so aromatic and fragrant with the garlic and onion. And the garlic and onion also give you a ton of benefit for your body. Both garlic and onion are supportive of your something called a sulfation pathway, which is really helpful for detox. So if you can get more garlic and onion in your life, that's fantastic for you. So I typically would make this with olive oil, garlic, and onion, and then I add my broccoli and my grass-fed ground beef. Now, sometimes I decide to add a little more healthy fat than just the olive oil because I'm hungrier. And at the end of the meal, right before I'm going to take it out of the skillet, I might add some actual green olives because I'm already using olive oil. Or I might actually add some sun-dried tomatoes that have been stored in extra virgin olive oil. So those would be additional sorts of fat. I might even decide to add a little bit of walnut so that there's some additional healthy fat on there, because that might be something that I'm hungry for. And I'm saying this, I'm actually hungry right now as I'm recording this for you. So this is making my mouth water. So that would be an example of a very simple meal that you could literally make in under 20 minutes, maybe even 15. And what was the key? That I already had that grass-fed ground beef cooked. So what's another simple example? Okay, here's one that doesn't even involve any cooking. You don't even have to do anything on the skillet. This would be just in a bowl. You would put a serving of a healthy avocado oil-based mayo. So the brands I recommend are Primal Kitchen, Chosen Foods, or even Sir Kensington's. But I want you to read the label very carefully because some of them add bad oils to them. So Primal Kitchen will never add bad oils to it. So make sure you look for Primal Kitchen. But if you have Chosen Foods or Sir Kensington's, just make sure it's actually only avocado oil and that they don't add something like canola oil or another seed oil to it. And then you could add, that would be your healthy fat. You could add some organic celery for your carbohydrate. And then you can add a can of tuna for your protein. And if you don't like tuna and you don't like tuna salad, then you could use chicken. You could just add cut up chicken that you already have made in your fridge, shredded chicken that you cooked in the crock pot earlier that day or the day before. So of course that involves a little bit of planning, but if you have the chicken or the tuna, that's your protein. The mayo is your healthy fat, and the celery is your vegetable. That's your carbohydrate. Now, when I make it with tuna salad, I like to add even a half a cup of beans because it gives me some extra fiber. And I promise you, if you do a couple stalks of organic celery, a half a cup of beans, a can of tuna that you've drained and rinsed, that's a high quality can of tuna like Wild Planet or Tonino or Safe Catch or some of these other really high quality brands of tuna. And then you add a high quality olive oil. And I always add some of my chimichurri or umami seasoning spices. You are going to be so full from that meal. It will be hours before you want to eat. Truly. And by the way, if you feel like there isn't enough liquid with just 1 tablespoon of the Primal Kitchen or other brand of mayo that you use, then I tend to add another tablespoon of like a Dijon mustard so that I'm not giving myself too much by way of calories and it's not too calorically dense, because Dijon mustard doesn't have any calories at all. Maybe there's 5, but that allows it to have a little more liquid. And I personally like the taste of the mayo and the mustard combined. So this is another super easy meal that you can make in under 20 minutes. Okay. I have so many other examples here, but I want to be respectful of time. So let me just run through these for you so that you get your brain around the fact that all we have to do is think of prioritizing protein, filling in with fat, and carefully adding carbs. So here's another example. Prioritizing protein. I chose, let's say, a pasture-raised organic chicken. I already talked about that in my alternative to the tuna salad. So you could have a shredded chicken, or you could have baked chicken earlier in the oven, somehow that you've cooked your chicken, but it's cooked. And then for your healthy fat, you could use like a grass-fed butter in the skillet, let's say. And then for your vegetable, your carefully added carb, you could do like organic cabbage slaw. And I should mention, even though you might be like, oh, I don't want to cut broccoli. I don't want to cut cabbage. Do this the easy way, like I do. Buy a bag of organic broccoli and just cut off the parts that you don't want to eat. Buy a bag of organic cabbage slaw and literally take a fistful of it and put it in the skillet with the grass-fed butter. You don't have to chop anything. Now, I obviously think these meals taste better if you choose to chop some garlic and onions, like I just mentioned before, because I love the way that that makes meals more flavorful. But you could simply do butter, cabbage, and chicken. And then for another little flavor at the end, you could add some organic pesto, some vegan pesto, or some really high quality pesto like Gotham Greens, classic pesto or vegan pesto. One has cheese, one doesn't. And I love the taste of pesto with chicken on anything. And it's such an easy meal. And now you have 2 sources of healthy fat because you've got some pesto and your grass-fed butter. And that will also satiate you for a while. Another example is we could use as our protein, we could use some organic pasture-raised eggs. Now, What most people don't realize is in order to have enough protein in a meal to be able to stimulate muscle protein synthesis, you need to have 30 grams of protein, and that would require you to eat 5 eggs. So what I do a lot of times, if I only want to eat 2 or 3 eggs, is either I add a little bit more liquid organic egg whites, which is one way to get more protein in that meal, or to get a fiber benefit, I'll add a half a cup of the beans, which will give me more protein, or I'll add a little bit of shredded chicken or grass-fed ground beef or some other source of protein with my eggs to make sure I have enough protein in that meal. Again, you want to make sure you're getting 30 grams of protein in your meal for muscle protein synthesis. That's a mechanism in our bodies where your brain actually recognizes and stimulates and signals to your muscles that it's supposed to be building muscle. So that you want to make sure you're having 30 grams, and 2 eggs is not going to cut it. 2 eggs is between 12 and 14 grams of protein, so you need to have more than that. Sometimes I'll do 2 eggs, I'll do a half a cup of beans, and then I'll sprinkle 2 tablespoons of organic nutritional yeast on my meal because that will give me another 5 grams of protein, and that will get me over the 30 gram threshold. So we've already talked about the eggs as our source of protein. So what are we going to use for our healthy fats and our carbs? Well, easy. In this example, I chose to do organic ghee, and ghee is an alternative to grass-fed butter. Organic ghee has a really high smoke point, so you can cook this on like 450 degrees. And then for my vegetables for my carefully added carbs, I wanted to add some color. So I did some organic peppers, green peppers, red peppers, and I like organic garlic and onions. So I'm going to cut those too. So yes, the most time intensive part of this meal is cutting the vegetables, but I want you to start to open your mind to the fact that if you want to eat healthy, if you want to lose fat off your body, and if you really want to feel good and have a lot of energy and live a long and beautiful, healthful life, you're going to have to start occasionally cutting some vegetables or some fruits. That's just going to be part of the deal. So stop resisting it and start considering that just adding that is going to make your life longer. So in this meal, I added organic ghee, organic onions, peppers, and garlic. I then added some organic beans and organic pasture-raised eggs. And that is a prioritizing protein with the eggs and the beans, a filling in with healthy fat, which is the organic ghee, and a carefully adding carbs, which for me was peppers and garlic and onions. Okay, another example, and I want to do this using a different source of healthy fat. So in this one, we're going to use chicken again, but you could swap this out for beef or salmon or any kinds of other fish or turkey or any kind of other protein that you like. You could even use tofu if you're a vegetarian or vegan. You could even use tempeh if you're a vegetarian or vegan. But I want to use for a fat this time, organic virgin unrefined coconut oil. So as I said, your protein, I'm saying chicken, but you could use any of those other proteins I mentioned. My healthy fat is coconut oil. And then I'm going to use organic purple cabbage for my carefully added carb because I thought that color might be fun. And I'm going to top it with organic unsweetened coconut flakes to add a little more of that coconut flavor. And because that's another good source of healthy fat. Very simple. Protein, fat, carbs. You're getting fiber from the cabbage. Always, you're getting fiber from the vegetables. And that's why I liked having the beans in that last meal because I got an extra dose of fiber. And then just a couple, 2 or 3 other examples I have for you. One would be another one using pesto, but also olive oil. And this would be adding organic zucchini and then like a wild caught salmon. So this is sort of an Italian flair with fish. You know how if you go to an Italian restaurant sometime, they have like either the seafood stew or something with really good salmon or other fish. You could do this with pesto sauce or even tomato sauce and then olive oil and zucchini. On Christmas Eve every year, my mom makes her traditional meatballs. I've gotten her away from using regular flour or breadcrumbs in them, and she uses a keto breadcrumb or an almond flour in the meatballs for us now. And then we have an organic zucchini. While some of the kids have pasta, we do an organic zucchini with a really good homemade red sauce, and it is absolutely fantastic. And so I use olive oil to make the zucchini so that I'm getting that good healthy fat in addition to the protein from the meatballs and the carbohydrate from the zucchini. So you could do that. Another one that's a no-cook one, because I gave you that tuna salad example, but I want to give you another example of a no-cook one, which is an easy yogurt bowl. Okay, you guys, this is so simple and so delicious. So I recommend that you get for your prioritized protein, a good grass-fed organic yogurt. And I do recommend that you add a little protein powder to it because typically you don't get enough yogurt unless you eat a huge bowl of it to have a full 30 grams of protein. So I'll do a serving of either a 0%, a 2%, or a 5% plain organic yogurt. And then I will add a serving of protein powder to it. And then my healthy fat is some organic raw walnuts or other nuts that you enjoy. And my carefully added carb is a cup of warmed, frozen, or healthy, fresh, organic berries. It's delicious, and that will satiate you for a very long time. And then last but not least, I want to leave you with one of my favorite recipes, and I consume this often, and it is my very easy 3-ingredient organic chia seed pudding. I just love it so much. So this is how I make my organic chia seed pudding. You just take 3 tablespoons, which is the same thing as 30 grams of organic chia seeds, and you put them in a small dish, and then you add 3/4 of a cup, which is the same thing as 180 grams of my favorite is Alexander Farms, grass-fed, organic, regenerative agriculture A2 kefir. I don't care if you use low fat or the whole milk one. They're both fantastic. So you do the 3 tablespoons of chia seeds with a 3/4 of a cup of the kefir, and then you stir that really well. I actually add a little bit of organic Ceylon cinnamon to it also because I love cinnamon and everything. And you stir that really well until the chia seeds are all mixed up with the kefir. And then I put a lid on it and I let that sit in the fridge for at least an hour. Now it can sit in the fridge overnight. It can sit in the fridge for 4 hours. It can sit in the fridge for 60 minutes, whatever. But after I put it in the fridge, I just set the timer and I go about keeping myself busy with other things until it's ready. And then once an hour has passed or more, I pour it into a bowl with 1 serving of my favorite protein powder. I tend to use vanilla. And then I also add some sort of fruit that I love, which whether it's organic apple or organic berries, or sometimes I even go crazy and use organic banana. And then I add a serving of nuts or some nut butter. So I might use organic raw walnuts. I might use organic pecans or hazelnuts. I might sprinkle 2 tablespoons of an organic peanut butter or almond butter over it. But I am telling you guys, this is such a satiating meal. Kids love it. Every time I make it for kids, they love it. The texture is almost like a tapioca pudding because it has the little chia seeds in it that are so good for you. And they have such a great amount of fiber in this dish. Highly recommend. It will keep you satiated for hours. So I hope I've given you a ton of different ideas for you to be able to make an easy, healthy, nutritious meal in less than 20 minutes, most of these less than 15. And just remember, you're going to prioritize protein, fill in with fat, and carefully add carbs. And for a bonus, you're going to add fiber first. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Thanks so much.